today. This is Maria Isabel Cajario introducing to you the topic that we will discuss today, which is about normalization and its types. So without further ado, let's start the discussion with the question, what is normalization? A normalization is a multi-step process that puts data in a tabular form, removing duplicated data from the relation tables. It is also a technique of organizing the data into multiple related tables to minimize data redundancy. What does it mean when we say data redundancy? It is a repetition of similar data at multiple places that we want to reduce it. And why should we reduce it? Because repetition of data itself extra space increases the size of database and leads to more issues such as insertion, deletion, and updation problems. The question is how normalization will solve all these problems. So normalization can be achieved in multiple ways. We have three basic normal forms in which we can achieve normalization. These are first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, and another more advanced normalization technique, which is known as BCNF or Boy's Code Normal Form. But before we proceed, let me introduce my groupmates. The first normalization will be discussed by me and Jessica. The second normalization will be discussed by Ramos. The third normalization by Agonta. The fourth, which is known as BCNF, is by Barbarono. And the last for overall example is Vasquez. So let's start with the first normal form. How to achieve first normal form? There are four basic rules to achieve the first normal form. By the way, first normal form is more like the step 1 of the normalization process. First rule, it should only have single-valued attributes or columns, means they shouldn't contain multiple values. As you can see on the table, column 1 has only single values, so that is correct, while column 2 is wrong because it has two values or multiple values. Second rule, values stored in a column should be of the same domain or type. In each column, the value stored must be the same kind or type. If a column date of birth is to say the dates of a group of people, you cannot or must not save the names of any of them in that column along with the dates of birth of others. For other records or show, it can only include the date of birth. Third rule, all the columns in a table should have unique name. This is done to prevent misunderstandings when extracting data or running other operations on stored data. If one or more columns have the same name, the DBMS code would be confused. Fourth rule, or the last, order data is saved doesn't matter. This rule states that the order in which you store the data in your table doesn't matter. Even if all the rules are self-explanatory, it still have an example, and Miss Jessica will show it to us. Thank you.
So there are two basic rules of first normal form. First is contains only atomic values. The second is there are only no repeating groups. An atomic value is a value that cannot be divided. For example, in the table shown, the value in color column in the first row can be divided into red and green. Hence, the table product is not in the first normal form. So, as you can see, this table is not in the first normal form because the color column contains multiple values. For example, the first column includes values red and green. So, to bring this table into first normal form, all we have to do is break the values into atomic values. And now, we have the resulting tables. So, that's all for the first normal form.
The second normal form. The second normal form, the table should be in the first normal form. Second, it should not have any partial dependencies. So as what you have seen in the first slide, it contains three tables, and the following are first, we have the student table, where we have the student ID as the primary key. So when we say primary key, it is used to fetch data from any column in the table. Second, the subject table, where we have the subject ID. And last, the score table, where we have the student ID and the subject ID. And now, let's move forward about partial dependency. So first, let us know what is dependency. So example is the student table, where it has the student ID, the name, registration number, branch, and address. The student ID is the primary key for this table. Let us remember that even if it has the same name, but if the student ID in this table will be unique, it can be easily fetched to any data. Example, I would like to ask you the branch name of students with student ID 10. So it will be CSE in the table. So this is dependency or functional dependency. Partial dependency. Example is the subject table. So we have subject ID and the subject name. The subject ID is the primary key for this table. Now we have student table, score table, and subject table. For the score table, the primary key is the score ID, but student ID plus subject ID together makes more meaningful primary key, and we can fetch all the information using it. By working the table, we have the column name teacher, which is the only dependent on the subject. So as what you have seen in the table, Mr. J subject ID equals 1 is for Java, and Mr. C++ subject ID is equal to is for C++. So now our objective is to remove teacher column from score table. So score table is the primary key and the student ID as well as the subject ID. So and for this, the teacher column only depends on subject and not on students. And this is partial dependency. Now to remove that we have many different solutions, but we can create another teacher table and use teacher ID whatever we want.
Let's get through the third normal form. What is the third normal form in DBMS? If a relation is in second normal form but doesn't have any transitive partial dependencies, then it is in the third normal form. The third normal form method is used to reduce data duplication. It is also used to make sure the integrity of the data. If no transitive dependencies exist between non-prime attributes, then the relation must be third normal form. What are the requirements for a table to be a 3NF? A relation of the third normal form is at least one of the following requirements holds in every non-trivial function's dependency, which is the x and y, where x is a super key and y is a prime attribute. Always keep in mind that a database is in the third normal form if it satisfies the following conditions. 1. It is in second normal form. And 2. There is no transitive functional dependency. Also, the third normal form offers the groupings of data that is simple, easily maintainable, and with minimum redundancy.
Now, for the Boyce code normal form, or also called as BCNF, there are two conditions that must be satisfied. First, the table should be in third normal form. Second, for any type of dependency, if A derives B, A should be a superkey. Therefore, the BCNF or the Boyce code normal form does not allow partial and transitive dependency. Again, in solving partial dependency or removing partial dependency, if A derives B, A must be a prime attribute or a primary key, while B must only depends in A attribute if A is part of a candidate key ACF. While in solving transitive dependency, if A derives B, attribute B should not depend in A attribute if both are primary attribute or not a prime attribute. Therefore, BCNF in functional dependency, if A derives B, A should always be a primary key that derives in a non-primary attribute B. For example, this one. We have a student table here. The table contains of 4 attributes. As you can see, there's no repetitive value in each field or attribute, which satisfies the first normalization form. It also satisfies the second and third normal form. But if you can notice, there's a subject that has 2 different professors and it does not satisfy the BCNF. So to upgrade this into BCNF, we need to break this table and divide it into 2 tables. We need to separate the professor and the subject from the student table since the subject is part of the candidate key while professor is a non-prime attribute key. So what we will do now is we will create a table entitled Professor Table that contains professor's name and subject and have a new primary key called Professor ID. So now we have two tables that satisfies the BCNF, the student table and the professor table. Thank you.
So I will be the one to give an example for database normalization. So database normalization example can be easily understood with the help of a case study. So with the example above, so as shown, a video library maintains a database of movies rented out. Without any normalization in database, all information is stored in one table as shown above. So let's understand normalization database with tables examples. We have full names, which is Janet Jones, Robert Peel, and also Robert Peel. So for physical address, Janet Jones, 1st Street, lot number 4. For Robert Peel is 3rd Street, 34. So and for also Robert Peel is 5th Avenue. So for the movies they rented, Janet Jones rented Pirates of the Caribbean, Clash of Titans. For Robert Peel, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and Daddy's Little Girl. So for Robert Peel in 5th Avenue, Clash of the Titans. For salutation, so for Janet Jones, he is a Miss, or for Robert Peel, Mr. And for the Robert Peel in 5th Avenue is also Mr. So for the first normal form or 1 in F, we have two set of rules. So the first rule is each column must contain a single value. And for the second rule, each record must be unique. So what is a key? So a key is a value used to identify a record in a table uniquely. So a key could be a single column or a combination of a multiple columns. So note, columns in a table that are not used to identify the record uniquely are called non-key columns. So in our database, we have two people with the same name, Robert Peel, but they live in different places. So for the 2NF or second normal form, we have two set of rules. So rule number 1, be in the first normal form. So second rule, single column primary key. So a primary key is a single column value used to identify a database record uniquely. So a primary key has the following attributes. So a primary key cannot be null. A primary key value must be unique. The primary key value cannot be changed or should rarely be changed. So a primary key must be given a value when the new set of record is inserted. So we have divided our 1 in F table, table 1 and table 2. So for table 1 contains member information. So table 2 contains information on movies rented. So I introduce a new column called membership ID, which is the primary table for table 1. So records in table 1 can be uniquely identified using membership ID. So for the last normal form or for 3NF or for third normal form, we have two set of rules again. So rule number 1, be in the second normal form. So for rule number 2 has no transitive functional dependencies. So to move our 2NF table to third normal form, we again need to divide the table. So we have again divided our table and created a new table which stores the salutation. So in table 3, ID is the primary key. In table 1, the salutation ID is a foreign key to primary key in table 3.